Hello and welcome to a new session on the topic ADRs and the Arc42 standard or template for documentation and communication of software architecture in the context of enterprise architecture. And disclaimer, in this video series we are introducing the topics and how you could benefit from them as an enterprise architect yourself. However, any copyrighted materials, please refer to the websites iSAQB.org and Arc42.org. For these sessions, we have been introducing the Arc42 template. I have downloaded it from arc42.org/download under English with help docx for Word. We have covered most of the sections in the template so far. Today we continue our discussion where we left off at the architecture decisions. The architecture decisions, this is where you document architecture decision records, ADRs. A term that you might be familiar with, and it is actually quite necessary. You cannot really go without ADRs in your alignment sessions. You are documenting the decisions being made, the compromises being agreed on. You are documented the stakeholders who made these decisions, the dates and times and sessions, meetings, information that has led to these decisions. This is very important. I cannot stress enough how important this is in the context of enterprise architecture. The format, as you can see, very flexible, a list, a table, as many columns as per the standard of your organization. The second part is the quality attributes or quality requirements. This used to be called the non-functional requirements. However, as the terminology has drifted or changed in the world of enterprise architecture to quality attributes, these are quality attributes that you cannot oversee in your architecture work. So this is a good place to introduce them, such as quality attributes such as interoperability, scalability, anything that ends with LT that is related to software architecture quality requirements. This is a good place to introduce them. Extensive list can be available on the website qualityarc42.org. You introduce the quality requirements over here, and in the form of simple table will be enough. You can also reference them to the runtime scenarios or use cases that you have listed previously in the requirements sections. You can have quality scenarios that could be tested. It could also be the case that the quality testing is to be introduced in a different documentation tool or in a different team altogether. But here, from your architecture perspective and the perspective of the stakeholders who are approving this architecture work package, what are the quality scenarios that are essential for this implementation to be measured as successful? You introduce the metrics that are also to be measured in this context. So you can have some scenarios, stress test, you can have end-to-end test. You introduce the rationale why you are doing this, and you can see here a template with a few fields to be filled in aspect to every test case scenario. The second part is the risk and technical debt. And I would say for enterprise architecture, risk analysis is one of the cornerstones and one of the topics that an architect excels in. What are the risks that is resulting from introducing this system? What are the potential problems that we are going to face in the future? Are we going to have any issues related to resources consumption in the cloud? Are we going to have any collaboration or cross-cutting issues with data privacy that need to be addressed a sophisticated way? You list here the risks, the technical debts, be as comprehensive as possible, because this is again quite important, because I would use the terminology used in asset in the stock market, for example. A loss is a risk that has not been accounted for. So if you don't account for the risk, it becomes a loss, and this could be disastrous if your system is in production and being used by a large customer base. And in mission critical infrastructure projects, this section is very important to address and assess. One of the tips I have learned also the hard way in architecture, enterprise architecture context, is that there is no project without risk. There must be any form of risk that need to be listed here so that the stakeholders are aware of. You also need to make the stakeholders, the project manager, product owners, management, third-party partners aware of the risk. Why do you think this is a risk? What are the frequency and magnitude of the risk? You can also find many different materials on risk analysis methodology that you can use from, for example, FAIR method from the Open Group in alignment with TOGAF, but this is a topic for another day. This brings us to the last section, glossary. This will list the acronyms, abbreviations, any terminology that you have used and their definitions. And this is a tabular format, as you can see on the screen. And with this, we are through with introducing the Arc42 template skeleton that I believe is quite an essential tool for documentation and communication of software and enterprise architecture. I've been using it myself in real life projects, and I will always recommend it for you, or even to be more concrete, adapting it, because it's very flexible and can be adapted to any organization to fit within the architecture repository. Adapt it to your organization workflow and standards. Thank you, and see you in future sessions.